stay free, or fight. Do what your heart desires, know what the law requires, know well your friends and foes, you're the one who really knows. Gotta stay free for life. Stay free or fight.
Anyway, it's AllDayLive, and we're glad that we're going to have a chance to talk with Bruce Campbell. This is AllDayLive from Seattle, and I'm WillPWilson, and we have Mike Shoup sitting in the background. We also have James Losh sitting here. We'll hear about that. PSKS.org. I'm WillPWilson. And tonight, I thought it'd be interesting about the Amercan Defense Party. We can find out more about it, what that means as far as, for example, if we get a hold of Bruce Campbell, that's James, that's Bruce, right here, Amercan Defense Party. I am going to hear some things. I think we have Bruce Campbell on the phone. Bruce, it's really good to hear you. Bruce?
Thanks, Will. I've got an awful lot of distortion and echo here. I can hardly understand what you're saying.
Okay, can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, we got to have your sound up a little bit so that people can hear you. Keep talking. We've got it figured out here. We kind of throw this set together so people, I hope you entertain you while we're keeping the ship afloat. Bruce, go ahead. I've got your website up in the background. Give us an idea. Where do we start? What do we know about the Amercan Defense Party? Where do we start? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. I think, the problem in America is that we started out with a rotten foundation, and Americans just don't understand that. It's kind of like religion. It's all based on faith. And that's what we got with this Constitution. People don't realize what a dirty trick it was. They think, we've got to be loyal to the Constitution. We got to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Right.
Well, the Constitution is the enemy. It's a domestic enemy. It's a 7-part program on how to run a central government. There's nothing in there for us. There's nothing in the 7 articles of the Constitution, the original Constitution, that's for us.
Yeah.
It's for the guys in power to perpetuate their power, to stay in. And we got fed this line of baloney that it's checks and balances. It's a wonderful form of government. Well, it's not a wonderful form of government. It's a dictatorship. As soon as a guy named Abraham Lincoln came along, it kind of stumbled along with the president. What the hell is a president? Well, he presides. Okay, well, that's the first time in history anybody ever had a president, somebody who presides. What's he preside over? Well, the executive branch. Okay, well, the executive branch, they execute. They're the boss, huh? Well, no, you got the 2 houses of Congress. You got the lower house. It's represents the people because they have elections, direct elections for representatives. In the upper house, the Senate, that represents the states. And the senators are appointed by the state legislatures to represent the state's interests. And, of course, you got the Supreme Court to make sure everything is constitutional. Oh, it sounds great. Well, that is great, in theory, I guess, until you get a guy like Abraham Lincoln come along, corporate lawyer, working for the Illinois Central. And as soon as a guy with that kind of nerve appears, he's got gall, he's ruthless, he knows if he's got a legitimate grievance like some states wanting to get away from him and the rapacious Yankee textile guys in New York wanted that cotton. They didn't care how they got the cotton. They didn't care who picked the cotton or who harvested, who picked the seeds out of it. They don't care. They didn't care a damn where the cotton came from. They just wanted that cotton. And if it was picked by slaves, well, that's okay too. And that's the way it was. Slavery was okay with the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, slavery is okay with it. Yeah. Dred Scott Scott decision said that if a slave escapes from his master, his owner, and got away, that he should be returned because, after all, he's property. He belongs to somebody, and it's quite proper for him to be returned by force to his owner. That was the Supreme Court. What kind of a thinking situation is that? Where's the check and balance on our liberty and freedom with that mentality? And you got the proportional thing in the Congress that the slave was counted as 3/5 of a person for representation. Did he get 3/5 representation? No, he didn't get any representation, but he was counted as 3/5 of a person. That was okay under the Constitution. That was in the Constitution. I mean, what's so great about the Constitution? Okay, so anyway, it didn't start out that way. It started out as a revolution, a violent, bloody revolution against dictatorship. King George and the Redcoats in Boston. And they spread out all over the damn place. And they fought like hell. And originally they fought under the Articles of Confederation based on the Declaration of Independence. And for the first, throughout the Revolution, they were under the Articles of Confederation. And for about 4 years after the Revolution, 8 years in all.
Yeah.
But then these Federalists decided they would pull a trick.
Yeah.
They were going to modify the Articles of Confederation, which didn't need any modification, but they said they were going to modify them in Philadelphia. And then when they got there, they scrapped them. They just said, to hell with them. Get rid of the Articles of Confederation. We're going to start our own thing. Well, here's what happened. I got this little book written in 1976, or published 76, by the Sovereign Grand Commander of the 33rd degree of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. His name was Henry C. Clausen. He published a little book called Masons Who Helped Shape Our Nation. Now, this is the big cheese. This Sovereign Grand Commander, he's in charge of all Freemasonry all over the world. It's based at the headquarters of the 33rd degree in Washington, D.C. On page 82 of this little book, he writes, quote, "Though free, we were not yet united." That was in 1783. The loose Articles of Confederation did not provide a strong national government, common currency, or consistent judicial system. Men of vision, this is how they defined themselves. They were the men of vision. Realized that another step must be taken if the weak Confederation of American States was to become a strong, unified nation. Remember, we fought the Civil War, the War of Northern Aggression, for the Union, unification, unified nation. You see, he goes on again. Freemasonry set the pattern in ideology and form. Hence, the Masonic federal system of organization was the only pattern for effective organization, creating in each of the original 13 colonies. It was natural that patriotic brethren, meaning Masons, should turn to the organizational base of the craft for a model. Regardless of the other forces that affected the formation of the Constitution during the Constitutional Convention of 1787, the fact remains that the federalism created is identical to the federalism of the Grand Lodge system of Masonic government created in Anderson's constitutions of 1723. So there you have it. Obviously he's bragging, but he's got bragging rights because all these guys were Masons. All the guys in Philadelphia, they're all Freemasons. And they gave us a Freemasonic system. We were crippled from the beginning. This country started out on a rotten foundation, the Constitution. It was so bad. It was so dangerous. Patrick Henry looked at it. He said, "What the hell is this we fought for?" And he said, "Where's our Bill of Rights? Where's the rights?" The Federalists, Alexander Hamilton and Madison and all these clowns. "Oh, don't worry about rights. I mean, we'll never violate your rights. We respect your rights." And they said, "Wait a minute, we got to have that in writing." I mean, every state constitution has a Bill of Rights attached to it. Some of them have like 20 voting rights in their Bill of Rights. Well, it took 4 years because the Federalists fought this thing for 4 years, saying, you don't need a darn Bill of Rights. Just trust us. No, I can't trust you guys. Got the Bill of Rights to protect us from the Constitution. See, that's I think what the Amercan Defense Party is. Nothing else. How to spread this concept that the Constitution is not the solution, it is the problem. It was foisted on us by the guys called the Federalists. What else did they do? What else did these Federalists do at the same time? Well, they put us under a private central bank. Oh, the first bank of the U.S. It was identical to what we have today, the Federal Reserve. Just under a different name, because they come up with these sounding titles like United Bank of the United States and Federal Reserve System. It sounds official as hell. But they're private. Everything is privatized. It was privatized from the very get-go. The Federalists said, hey, you can't have a private central bank without a central government to enforce it. Where do we get the central government? Well, we got this Constitution. This gives us a central government. Patrick Henry said this is an empire. These guys have created an empire. By God, did they ever? We got to rethink everything. We got to throw out the Constitution as a fraud on the people. We got to get rid of the federal government. We got to get rid of the Federal Reserve System. These are the basic tenets of the Amercan Defense Party. No federal government. Can't afford it. Never should have had it in the first place. It takes all the money from the states. That's where it gets its money, from the states, of course. And then the states kiss their butts, try to get back 15% of it for highway funds and for all these federal programs, federal money for welfare and all this crap. They take money and they burn about 80% of it, 85% of it. God knows what. Wars and waste and fraud and abuse. It's all the defense contractors, all this money. I mean, they were taking pallets of currency to Iraq. Pallets. Billions of dollars were disappearing. Who cares? They didn't care. Not coming out of their back pocket. So we can't afford this. We got 50 state governments. This is not anarchy. This is just get rid of this super government. Because we cannot afford a super government. We never could. It was always dedicated to our destruction. That's where we are today. It's destroying us. So either we destroy the federal government, and I got a little three-part plan for that, or it's going to destroy us, because it just about has. I think of the millions of people it's killed since 1991 overseas, and how many soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines have been slaughtered and dismembered and had their brains messed up by IEDs. It's just, the Department of Veterans Affairs, different than the Veterans Administration. But the big legendary figure is they lost about 4,000 or 5,000 people in Iraq. What a bunch of crap. The Department of Veterans Affairs says it's more like 75,000 fatalities. They're hiding so much of this because they're so ashamed. That's why Bush wouldn't let any photography be done at Andrews Air Force Base when they were bringing the bodies in. He forbade any photography of the coffins coming in. There's so many of them. So we know that there were 2.5 million soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines in the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Find out that there have been 1 million casualties. 1 million casualties. And some of them are extremely severe. Laid waste to the military. They've laid waste to everything. They've just burned money. So we can't afford this stinking thing. Gotta go. So we got a three-part program. Because how do you overthrow the federal government? And it's easy. The federal government is controlled by three basic organizations, Jewish organizations: the Federal Reserve, AIPAC, and the Council on Foreign Relations. So what the Amercan Defense Party stands for is the destruction of these three Jewish organizations: the Federal Reserve System, private; AIPAC, which is private; the Council on Foreign Relations, which is private. This is what controls the federal government. You cut the head off the snake. You kill these three organizations and everybody in them. The federal government will collapse because it will have no false funding. It will have no correction policy.
Really good. So, how far along is the Amercan Defense Party right now? What would we see? How many people have asked? How many hits on the website? If we bring it up.
I have no idea. I mean, I just write stuff, put it on there, and people all over the world look at it. All I care about is America. I have no idea how well read it is at this point. I just make my contributions. We're having a party congress, what did we call it? A People's Congress. We're planning to have it at the Cheyenne River Reservation in the spring or in the early summer. And those people, they are not only the first nation, they're the first victims, prototype of the extermination program. That's where it all started, against the Plains Indians, 7th Cavalry, Sherman and Sheridan, these monsters that wiped out ethnic cleansing. They wiped out the whole indigenous population here, and the rest of the ones they didn't wipe out, they put them in gulags for reservations. So we're going to take our first Congress at a gulag and help those people. They need help. They don't have any casinos. They don't believe in that easy money thing. They got a hard life. So they deserve help, and they are symbolic. That's where the program that we saw in Russia after 1918 of extermination of class enemies. It started in America. It was prototyped here. That's what people have to understand. America is the prototype of the New World Order. I mean, America is the New World, so probably that's why they call it the New World Order. America runs the world through the United Nations now. The United Nations is just a front. The CIA, Rockefeller's Council on Foreign Relations. You kill the CFR. There's about 4,500 people in it, 75% Jews. You wipe out these people, and they got to be wiped out because they are the most ruthless bastards on the face of this earth. AIPAC. I don't know. There might be 4,000 or 7,000 AIPAC members. Well, they got to go. They're trying to take us to war against Iran. Right now, they got 60 senators that'll nuke Iran. Not quite enough. That's how powerful these 1.7% of the population is. They can control 60% of the U.S. Senate. How does that work? What the hell is that? If we can't, they turn us into a laughing stock. These people, these aliens, have come over here and taken over this country. Money. They turn us into a laughing stock. We can't even run our own lives because of these people. That's got to end.
Yeah, I can understand. I agree with you on that one. Can you hear? You can hear me, right?
I can hear you.
It'd be nice if we had the budgets that they have for their media, as if anybody's taken the time to realize. How much have you heard about Fukushima, for example? The fact that it's contaminated the entire Pacific Ocean, the whole Pacific, and now the world. And it's an extinction event. Yet we don't have any mainstream media. You can hear about the Seahawks all day long here. But right now, all the people that are celebrating the Seahawk celebration, not that it's not great. My grandfather was co-founder of the NFL many years ago. I founded the first Canadian American Football Conference in 1980. I mean, it's not like football's not a part of my life. But we're more importantly involved with celebrating this football, while in the meantime, right off our coast here, all of our sea life is going extinct. What are we defending against that? What type of defense do we have? It's like this whole society is like, it's like a science fiction fantasy, but it's reality, if that makes sense. I
It
mean,
doesn't even bear thinking about it. It's so hideous. I mean, I remember seeing that guy, Ralph Langner. He's a German computer forensic guy, and he was asked, I guess, to analyze Stuxnet.
yeah,
And he gave a talk on TED, a very short talk, and he explained how this Stuxnet worked, and it was used by the Jews, Americans, and Israelis, the CIA and the Mossad, to destroy the centrifuges or whatever at the Natanz reactor and facility in Iran. But unfortunately, he said it spread to like systems, to similar systems all around the world, and it got to Fukushima.
yeah.
And he said that is what caused the total meltdown. And I know there might have been a bomb or 3 or 4 bombs involved too, but the irrigation failed as it was intended to by Stuxnet at Fukushima, which has now killed, as you say, the Pacific Ocean. And, well, okay. I don't know if we can survive this one. I know there are microbes, there are forms of life that eat radiation, and just as there are forms of life that eat crude oil that could have been used in the Gulf. I don't think that was wanted because I think they're trying to turn the Gulf into a dead zone, algae production. And maybe they're doing the same thing with the Pacific Ocean. I don't know, but it's...
Well, take note.
Idiot.
If you look at physics, scalar physics, Colonel Tom Bearden, why isn't scalar physics being used, broadcast from the different technologies that create HAARP, weather modification and engineering? Why is it that we're not using this to figure out ways we can actually neutralize this nuclear problem? A patent that I co-authored in 1993 on the Brown's gas, which is hydroxy gas, working with Dr. Gil Brown, many other scientists, finding that it will, as a plasma, neutralize nuclear material, any material. And they wouldn't listen. They don't seem to care that all of us are going to be dead here real soon. I hate to say it.
I know. I'm there thinking about it. It's so horrible.
I've got a young couple that came on our show here last week, Stephanie Lundquist and Tom Hayes, about their Fukushima disclosure petition they filed at the whitehouse.gov. And so they're probably going to do some more with them about that, getting signatures. They need 100,000 signatures in about a month. Maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't. Who knows? We don't know. But we know that it's something that needs to be realized. This is more important than the Super Bowl. I think I'm right. Are we right, Mike?
Yes.
Mike's
we are.
Mike's an engineer.
I'm a civil engineer. I tried to do what I could do for ecology, etc.
Speak into it.
I'm speaking
Into it like that. Go ahead.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And
There you go.
you find out that these major corporations are some of the major polluters. So it's really hard to deal with them. Oh, and Doctrine of Discovery. You remember that? The Papal Bull of 1452, where if they found non-Christian peoples, they could take over their land and kill them and whatever, and try to turn them into Christians. And that's basically what they did to the native peoples that were living in America, or Turtle Island, you might say.
Yeah, and that's what Israel, Israel's basing their domination of the Palestinians on what Sheridan and Sherman did Plains Indians. I mean, this is the prototype here. So we have to step up, accept full responsibility for everything. That's the key to power. Want to take power, we have to take power. We have to accept full responsibility for everything that has been done in our name, and for everything that we personally do. We have to take full responsibility. I'm talking sedition. I've been accused of sedition in the past. FBI was supposed to arrest me back in 1990. I've been doing this for a long time. Nothing happens to me. People wonder why. I wonder why. Some guy wrote me and said, "Hey, listen, Brandon Robb, he ex-Marine. He says a few things on Facebook, and he gets busted, really brainwashed. And you say all these things and write all these things. Nothing happens to you. Why do you suppose that is?" It's trying to make me look bad, but I said, well, the only I can think of, the only difference that I can really think of automatically is that Brandon Robb didn't have any guns. Hard to believe, but he didn't have any guns. And FBI knows this. They know everything. You know, we learned from the Weaver massacre, Idaho, that the FBI uses psychologists and psychiatrists as prey, attack. They want to know what the guy or gal is going to do. We learned that from the Weaver deal. So, and from Koresh and all that stuff. We know what the FBI does. So, Ben and Rob, this is the most important story of all lately. The guy, 27 years old, ex-Marine, Marine combat engineer. He wasn't really a killer. He was like an engineer in bridges. But he had a little action over there, too. He was in Afghanistan and Iraq. Comes back, drops out of the Marine Corps, starts a couple of businesses in Richmond, Virginia area, and gets on Facebook with his brother and his sister and his mother. Private deal. He was talking trash about Bush and Obama and 9/11, Cheney, wondering if 9/11 was an inside job. So what happens? The NSA tells the Fusion Center in Richmond, which is an amalgamation of feds and cops. They said, go get him. Go pick him up.
Hey, Bruce, we're going to take a real quick break here. Can you hold off for just a second? We'll be right back, everybody. We'll continue this Amercan Defense Party. This is All Day Live. I'm WillPWilson, and we're listening from the standpoint of American Defense as a party. It's something I want to know more about. Bruce, I thank you very much. We're going to hear from you in just a second. Give us 1 second break. We'll be right back. Hold on. Bruce.
Obey the Constitution. Do we need a revolution? If no one really cares, foes of liberty should beware. Gotta stay free for life. Stay free or fight.
20. Hey, it's All Day Live. This is WillPWilson, and we're starting over again with Bruce Campbell. We're going to get some information put together here about what it is that we find standing sovereignty, issues that mean defense. What are we defending? Who are we defending? Where are we defending? What is it that it means to defend of? Bruce Campbell, veteranstoday.com. And Bruce, we have Mike Shoop in the background. We have Will Banjera, and we might have some input from James Loss, but maybe not. But anyway, this is the All Day Live show. And Bruce, as far as, let's say, the Veterans Today, we have to go there and find your articles. Is it Veterans Today, author-JB Campbell?
I'm not with them anymore. You know, I wrote for them for a couple of years, but I'm not with Veterans Today anymore. Okay. I got my own website, jbcampbellextremismonline.com, but okay. I'm not even doing that anymore. I'm doing AmericanDefenseParty.com. That's all I'm concerned with right now.
Okay. Well, that's good enough to start, and that's good enough for me. And we've got the website up in the background, which has got quite a lot about that. As far as where do we start to create a defense party? Where do we start? What do we do? As people.
Well, I mean, it stands for self-defense. That's the main thing. And when you're talking defense, anything goes. Okay. It assumes that you've been attacked and you have the right to defend yourself. That's just the law of survival, the law of frontier justice. I mean, it's just the number one law that everybody recognizes that. That's why the War Department in Washington, D.C. changes the Defense Department because it makes anything they do seem legitimate because it's defense. Well, I mean, that's fraud because it's obviously still the War Department pretending to be defense. But I mean, we really do stand for defense on a local level, which may be the most important one. We got a 3-part program that is, number one, Neighborhood Watch with a difference. I mean, Neighborhood Watch is a wonderful program, even the way it was laid out originally, because it does pull crime down in the crime areas. We do here in Idaho. We're only concerned with feds and rogue cops and bad sheriffs, that kind of thing. And so what we do, we take an oath, a neighborhood watch program here, to defend each other in the event somebody raids you, comes home, does a home invasion or a traffic stop that you think you're going to get snatched, like branded off, or roadblock, or whatever. I mean, we've got radios all on the same frequency. We got a holy oath that we take to come defend each other in the event of an attack. We feel pretty good. That's number one program. Yep. Number two is in the cities, primarily, where the cops are totally out of control and become sadistic monsters. Got to start civilian police review boards. Have them. But this is how civilians can take control of these sadistic, corrupt police departments and sheriff's departments. Now, some sheriffs are okay. They think they're supporting the Constitution. I tell you, if you're going to support the Constitution, you got your head up your rear end because you don't know what you're talking about. People who support the Constitution are people who haven't read the stinking thing. All it is a 7-part program on how to run us and control us and keep federalists in power, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. It keeps them in power. That's what this Constitution does, anyway. Yeah. But we can take control of these rotten, out-of-control police departments with civilian police review boards. Remember back in the 60s, the conservatives, like the Birch Society, they said, we mustn't have civilian police review boards because that would take away the power of the police. Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. The police work for us. We pay for everything. We buy their cars, their uniforms, their guns. Everything they have comes from our back pockets. So we got to take control of this thing. We're the boss. We pay the bills. So we will decide who gets to be a cop and who doesn't. That's the only way human beings can survive in this rotten day and age. Okay, that's the civilian police review board. Number 3 program is everybody knows somebody that's in the military. A relative or a friend of a friend or whatever. We got about a 60% chance, we estimate, that people in the military are loyal to us because of that questionnaire that they asked back in 94, 20 years ago. They asked some Marines and some soldiers 45 questions, and 44 of them had to do with the United Nations. Would you take orders from a foreigner? That kind of thing. All variations on that theme. Number 45 was, the law has been changed in America, and firearms are now against the law. Would you fire on Americans who would not obey this new law? And in 94, about 43% of those questions said they would fire on Americans. About 57% said no. I'm saying that after 2 wars, 20 years, and all the disillusionment and disasters and grievous injuries and the way the veterans are being treated, we get into that too. I would say that we've got about 60% or more, maybe 65, but let's say 60% military is probably loyal to us and will not go along with these treacherous, treasonous plans for martial law. Maybe 40% will. There's some psychos in there, there's some morons, and there's some very bad people in there too, as we saw with the guys pissing on the guys in Iraq. This is just unbelievable behaviors. Training. It's a function of training. So anyway, anybody in the military who's loyal, you must recruit these people, bring them into the party, or at least bring them into our way of thinking that we've got to overthrow this government.
Well, Bruce, would you consider, when you say the Constitution, then they have to protect our rights, is that correct?
We have no rights in the Constitution. That comes in the Bill of Rights. But the Constitution is not our friend. It's our enemy. The Bill of Rights is there to protect us from the Constitution. This is the main thing we got to get across in our minds. It's a big jump. The Bill of Rights is kind of our friend. I mean, it was very strangely worded, like the Second Amendment, very strangely worded amendment. The 10th Amendment like Patrick Henry read the 10th Amendment, where it says, reserved to the states, to the people. He said, what do you mean to the people? That's a code word for the federal government. And, you know, it was a trick. So even the Bill of Rights was somewhat deceptive, especially the Second Amendment. That's why I started the militia movement, you know. I started the militia movement in 1983, and finally got it going around 1989. I wrote this book called The New American Man. I started the militia movement. Nobody even knew what I was doing. The government didn't know what I was doing. The people fought it for years. This is militia. What are you doing? The militia was originally an auxiliary of the government. It was there to beef up the government if it didn't have enough manpower. So it was not a good thing. But I turned it on its head. I switched it from a government office. It hasn't even been in existence since 1906 or something when the National Guard started. They said, hey, this is the militia movement now. You're in the National Guard. This is your militia duties. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You can go overseas and fight and die and kill. But anyway, the militia had died. It was a dead thing until I revived it. But I made it an anti-government thing. Potentially. I mean, guys were arming themselves with, you know, buying lots of guns and ammo. I'm in the militia. State of mind. There was nothing to join. Nothing to join. But the government said there was about 5 million guys considered themselves in the militia. Okay, fine. I mean, I was trying to overthrow the government with it. I couldn't get that far.
Hey, Bruce,
Oklahoma
tell me
City.
something. Bruce, in
But
one of the hello.
yeah,
One of the issues I've been working on for a while now has been with the 14th Amendment, with our privileges, right, and how I'm in the state of Washington, and under our revised Code of Washington, Title 46, motor vehicle, that's what they use to give us tickets on the street. Now, what's happened here is that the Washington State Legislature in Chapter 59, Special Extension 232, stated that the legal definition of motor vehicle is commercial. Our Constitution, for the state Constitution, also says under Article 1, Section 2, that the supreme law of the land is federal. And in federal law, 18 United States Code, Section 31, it says the legal definition of motor vehicle is commercial. Also under 49 USC Subtitle 6, it says commercial, and it gave the state only permission to deal with commercial people on the streets, even though it's our responsibility federally to protect other people's rights, by obeying the street laws and stuff. So primarily, what I understand where you're coming from, and in the Seattle Municipal Court, case 516517, I presented this information to the prosecuting attorney and to the court itself, and they dismissed illegal driving while suspended in the 3rd degree with prejudice. Now, what's happening here is exactly what you're talking about. I believe what I'm getting from you is the fact that BS leads to BS, and the cream comes to the top with the truth. Now, every time somebody speaks about the truth, and this is you speaking on the television, when I'm listening to you, what it does is it brings more integrity in the whole world. And every time I've gone over other issues in meetings here on the television station, when every person becomes more positive, it makes the whole world better because it counters the negativism. So I'm very excited with the spiritual movement that's happening with Dr. David R. Hawkins' Metaphysics. He's on YouTube, and I would really like to have you check that out. And when I hear you on another meeting, I'd like to have you tell me what you think about that.
okay.
Dr. David R. Hawkins. Hey, thank you very much. I'm with you, and I'm running late for an appointment. And keep it up, sir.
Thank you, Will. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. That's Will Banjera, Private Attorney General. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Bruce. As far as you're out of Idaho, this is nationally recognized now. This program's going national, right? American Defense Party. It's American.
Yes. Yes, right.
North American Defense. You might even have Cannabis American Defense here. Maybe they'll join up and help provide something. Cannabis Defense.
We got members up in Canada too. You know, I mean, I don't pretend to have anything to do with Canada, but I mean, they like the sound of it. And they think they can apply it up there too.
Yeah. How many people are helping you with this right now? As far
Well, we're just kind of handling it ourselves. I mean, we're not, you know, empire building or anything. We're just trying to spread the word. And the thing we do, which very few people do in this truth movement, we don't try to scare anybody. We try to offer solutions. We make recommendations. How do we get out of this mess? What's the way out? Well, you know, if you listen to Alex Jones, you might as well cut your throat, because he scares the bejesus out of his listeners, but doesn't offer one recommendation. I don't think you should be allowed to complain about anything anymore without a recommendation attached to the complaint. You know, otherwise you're working for the U.S. Army. You're working for a psychological warfare branch. It was okay, you know, up until Reagan, say, or Bush, to scare people with ugly facts. But after a certain point, this starts to work against you psychologically, because if there's no solution offered, no recommendation, then it appears hopeless, because these tyrants are so ruthless. We always have to have the attitude, well, we can beat these guys because we can, you know. And the whole entire, let's say the whole U.S. military was against us, which is not true. We know about 60% are for us, are going to be on our side, which is great. Let's say they were all against us. Well, that's 1.4 million in the four branches, you know, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. But in the state of Pennsylvania alone, there's 1.4 million licensed deer hunters. It's just unbelievable how much firepower we have in this country. So what the American Defense Party stands for, empowering us and showing how to get out of this problem. Like our main problem is our money, Federal Reserve debt-based currency. Well, the solution is debt-free currency, the way Jack Kennedy proposed and actually started in 1963. Got him killed, I kind of think it did. But he was just one guy. He didn't have an organization. He didn't explain to the people what he was doing. He said a word about it. He just issued Series 1963 U.S. notes, like Lincoln did, like Hitler did. I mean, you know, look what it did to Germany, 1933 to 36. It liberated this miserable, downtrodden, starving country that had 50% unemployment, starvation, no industry, and within 18 months, the currency made it the envy of the world in the middle of the Great Depression, when we were drowning over here. We were like, you know, the Russian researchers have found out that our famous slogan, well, as bad as the Depression was, as bad as the Great Depression was, nobody starved. Well, the Russian researchers have revealed that, in fact, about 6 million Americans starved to death during the Great Depression, were covered up by the medical establishment and written off as natural causes or whatever. But that was how bad it was. It was even worse in Germany. But with the application of debt-free currency, he can do too. I mean, Jack Kennedy started it. And he was going to get rid of the Federal Reserve altogether with his debt-free currency. Now, don't confuse that. Silver certificates, that's a big... Silver certificates were nothing. U.S. notes, they were backed by nothing. They didn't have any silver behind them. They didn't have nothing behind them. That's the way out of our mess. So that's what we stand for. Always give a solution. Always make a proposal. You mentioned Fukushima. I mean, it sounds pretty hopeless. There are organisms, as we were talking about, that do consume radioactive material. Let's use them. Let's do something. You know, we got to, this is America. We're supposed to be the can-do solution, well, used to be. We still can. We can fix just about anything because we got the firepower. Everything depends on firepower. And America is the only country with firepower, you know, in the hands of private citizens. Use them.
Real quick, Bruce, this is Bill. What's your thoughts on the recallpetitions.org? But recall, could the Amercan Defense Party work with recalling our politicians who have sold us out? Another way to defend our country, right? Recall.
No. Forget. There's no political solution. That's why Amercan Defense Party is a political party, but it's non-voting. We're not going to run anybody for. We don't believe in the federal government. You know, I'm not talking about state government now. That's a totally different thing. You should take control of your state government. They're bad enough. They got to be dealt with too. But they don't present the problems and the horrible murder and disease and destruction of our way of life that the federal government has done. So we cannot fix this like General Paul Vallely. He wants to march on Washington and replace the Democrats with the Republicans. My God, what a fraud! You know. So let's forget any kind of federal government. We got to get rid of the federal government. We're not going to recall federal guys and put the good people in there, because you see, when you got 500 people, you got 435 congressmen, you got 100 senators, you got a president, you got Supreme Court, you got trillions of dollars that are funneled into these 500 and some odd people. Nobody can withstand this economic pressure. Nobody can. I don't care how good the person is that goes to Washington, D.C. He gets Potomac fever as soon as he gets there, and it becomes useless. It becomes an enemy. So we cannot win this thing. The politicians are not going to save us. We got to save ourselves. And let's forget recall, because that suggests we're going to put somebody else in there, like a Ron Paul. Oh, forget it. That's not going to work. You know, you can't do it that way. It's a rotten system. It's a constitutional system that has to be. It has failed. It's failed from the beginning.
Yeah, I could agree, but where do we rebuild it? As a defense party, do we rebuild it? Where do we start?
No, we're going to get rid of the federal government. No more federal government. We got 50 state governments. They're all the government we can handle. We cannot handle any federal government, any super government.
Okay.
We have to overthrow this by force and violence, because that's the way it goes. That's how we became a country in the first place. The way it is. You just have to bite the bullet and get rid of these clowns. They're going to kill us. They're killing so many people already.
They are.
And get rid of them and never let it come up again. No more federal government ever again. This is the enemy of mankind.
Well, Bruce, you've heard of COINTELPRO, I'm sure.
I have.
I mean, that's basically the tools they've been using, take down the leadership of anybody that would stand up to overthrow them.
That's right. And here's the deal. The Amercan Defense Party will deal with COINTELPRO or police spies or feds or whatever and agent provocateur because we have security. We will not tolerate spies and assassins and agent provocateur. They have to be eliminated. This is the difference. The militia had no security. The militia was taken over by the FBI very quickly. It's not going to happen here, because anybody that's caught spying is going to be eliminated. That's the difference, and that's what you have to have. You know, this is tough stuff. This is life and death, man.
Well, we've always
life
got
and
the
death.
Quislings.
Well, I agree with you, Bruce. We've got 7 minutes left. How much kind of an emphasis of attention are we getting in the States? Midwest, I mean, we mentioned this. I got the information here in the Northwest. Have you had any responses from the Northwest? Anything?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, you got people writing from all over the place. Northwest, east, south, west, everywhere. They love it. They love the idea. It's gutsy. It's bold. There's a solution for a change. Nobody else offers a solution.
So where our TV is helping a little bit, is it?
You bet.
Good. I mean, we can only try to help. I mean, it can't get any worse. It'd get worse, but I mean, it could have been started off in that direction more than it has already. Here we are going to go celebrate downtown the Super Bowl, where a bunch of people made billions and billions off it. Why doesn't all that money that was profiteered in that Super Bowl, why isn't it going to help the homeless in the 2 cities that played in it, for example? How many homeless people in Denver? How many in Seattle? I mean, this is a major issue. James, give us some input on that. I mean, defend against homelessness.
There's millions of homeless people out here, fellas. It's outrageous. We're dealing with a massive corporation. We're dealing with intergalactic wars. This is an insane world. You can't even park your vehicle past 25 hours before they impound it. And here they make stickers and placards where they impound your vehicle after 3 days, but they impounded mine after 25 hours. So, where's the line get drawn? You can't even put up a tent without having cops take your tent. You can't have anything in the city of Seattle without having anybody complain, gripe, moan and groan, and without anybody being kicked to the curb. Our politicians in this city are extremely corrupt. They get kickbacks from every towing company there is for every junk person's vehicle that gets squished. So where's the freedom? I mean, we're running a corporation that's extremely corrupt. The city of Seattle is a corporation that needs to be sent to hell. So pardon me, I mean, if you can't teach a person how to live in the streets, how in God's green earth are you going to teach a person how to pay rent?
And that's
I hear you. My wife and I were homeless for 18 months, living in her car. I mean, I got back to work finally, but it's a nightmare. You just think you're going to die because there's no point in living. Now we got 100 million people out of work now. What the hell? Why? Because of the Republicans and the Democrats and the federal government. They did this to us. Who gave us NAFTA? Well, it was Rush Limbaugh and Bill Clinton, that tag team, that bilateral, what do we call it, bipartisan
Bruce,
team.
take note. Apparently the medical cannabis and now something commercial cannabis here in the Northwest, they've created, I've heard this, we'll see, we'll find out, over 170,000 jobs here in the Northwest in that community. Growers, developers, food processors, manufacturers, packagers, deliverers, doctors. It's created over 170,000 jobs here. This is 2014, and today is February 7, 2014. I don't know, people, let's find out. I mean, it sounds about right, Bruce. I mean, they created jobs here, and as you know, Washington and Seattle were the two, Washington State and Denver were the 2 marijuana states, and they should have called it the Weed Bowl. I don't know. I mean, anything's possible. They should have filled the stadium up.
Well, some people did
smoke.
call it the Weed Bowl.
I mean, it's kind of amazing. Both those states now have created hundreds of thousands of jobs in that industry. Think about that.
Yeah.
I think part of the way is to realize that, for example, hemp may be the last protein we have left to consume after we can't eat seafood. And, it gets a little bit ridiculous. It's a little more serious than a bunch of narrow-minded people working in representation of pharmaceutical companies thereof. Well, we're in an extinction event, and the last food source may be hemp. Try to think about that. I mean, it's a little more serious than we realize. We got about 2 minutes left. Bruce, any one last message in this last 2 minutes?
When you brought up marijuana, I'd like to get some of that hemp oil, that heavy-duty stuff that Rick Simpson was making up in Canada. I really need some of that stuff. I don't know where you get it these days.
You can probably find them. There's lots of places that make it here locally. A lot of people that know it. I actually knew it. And I was going to mention this. We got about a minute left. Hemp or cannabis is found. It will help remove nuclear contamination out of our bodies, the soil and water. It's been found that it's verified. Research done even in the Midwest on cleaning up toxic nuclear spills in Lake Michigan. It seemed to have miraculous cleaning capability, meaning it takes it out of that stuff. It's more involved here. Part of the defense, like I was saying, the Cannabis Defense Party. Why not? I mean, anything's possible. We could go into homeless defense, right, James? There's more. We got 1 minute left. We're going to scroll through the credits so they know what we're watching. After we get finished, we're going to watch it too, everybody. Bruce, one last minute. Bruce?
Okay, well, I mean, check out AmericanDefenseParty.com. It's pretty radical and pretty exciting concept. People that want some action. Because you got to take out, to destroy the federal government, you just have to take out the head of it. which is privatized, and that is the Federal Reserve System, the APAC, and the Council on Foreign Relations. When these three rotten organizations are gone, the federal government will cease to be a problem very, very rapidly.
Right, and down here at the bottom of the screen, you can go to Fukushima Full Disclosure Now, petition whitehouse.gov, put together by Stephanie Lundquist and Tom Hayes, and that's the right where you can go to it. It's at the bottom of the screen if you can see it. I think it's important. We need 100,000 signatures in 3.5 weeks, people. If we don't get it now, we're going to have to keep trying. We better get full disclosure. This is talking about all your trees in the Northwest here, all of the trees. Think about that. In 110 years, we'll all be dead. Will this be the new Middle East, the 7 hills of Seattle, the 7 hills of Rome, the 7 hills of what? Jerusalem, right? 7 hills. Are we going to be a barren landscape like the last ones? Is this what it's all about? Thank you very much, Bruce. J.B. Campbell, and you're no longer with veteranstoday.com, but Stu Webb is. You guys can still catch up on that stuff. Any information on the web that you want people to go other than AmercanDefenseParty.com? Anything else?
Well, thanks a lot, Will. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
You might look up Matthew 10:34 to take a look at that, because that's what Jesus promised us.
And that's the information on the bottom of the screen, everybody. Thank you for watching All Day Live. We'll see you in this next segments. Go by weeks. Wish we could do them every day. Maybe you can get some people to get me hired, and we can do a syndicated broadcast from some of the local broadcasts here. And be helpful to get some funding. I think that would help too. But we can't do anything without something, and that's mostly all of us working together to make things succeed. Thank you very much, Bruce Campbell. Thank you. And it's AmericanDefenseParty.com. We'll see you guys next week. Bye, Bruce.
Thanks, Will.
Bye. Thank you.
Obey the Constitution. Do we need a revolution? If no one really cares, foes of liberty should beware. Gotta stay free for life. Stay free, or fight. Do what your heart desires. Know what the law requires. Know well your friends and foes. You're the one who really knows. Gotta stay free for life. Stay free or fight.